computer. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Now, where is my option to stream?
Is it if it you have it set up, it should be in the
Oh,
app
you know why? Maybe because I'm not the host.
live streaming. Oh, let me make you
Yeah,
host. Let me
make
make you
me
host.
host.
So hey. So like Jim, I know how you do this. So you need to stay the host and just keep your and then like switch over from your computer
Yeah.
to your phone because you can switch over from Zoom if you have Zoom on both. Stay the host the whole time and record on YouTube, even if
Huh.
and then just make Mike the co-host. That's
Yeah,
like the
because
easiest thing to do.
I have to be co-host to see the queue and who's
Yeah.
in the waiting. Yeah, okay.
And then that works obviously, but you just and you know how to switch over from your phone to your
Yeah, I got to make Mike the co-host. Let me do that.
I'll be on
Because
video. Give me a minute.
this YouTube thing is really slow anyway. Where are you, Mike? There you are. And make co-host. Okay. All right.
Take down that ridiculous
Let me,
ATS thing.
let me see if I can.
Now people are starting to flow in.
Okay. Okay. So then let
No,
me
we are
come.
cooking with gas.
Okay. Here's the YouTube. Let me see if I can get this stream going.
All electric gas grill. Yeah, you better stay over there.
All right, Mike, if you want to let everybody in, let them in.
Opening the
Oh,
floodgate.
make sure we set everybody that they can't unmute themselves. Let me do that.
Yeah.
Those tools, unmute themselves. No. Oh, hold on. Oh, come on. It's not letting me do it.
We're going to talk about Dracula later today.
There we go. Okay.
Let me pin you, pin him, pin me. There we go.
Okay. Everybody's coming in. All right. Let me just get back to the live stream here, which is, come on, come on. All right. It's 9:30. I'll worry about the live stream when I can. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Step into Cafe Americana for Sunday, August 10th, 2025. I'm Professor Kenny, your host, along with my co-host ML Shaw, and today, subbing for Andrzej Dobriansky is our good friend Aaron Reyes. So today we're going to keep everything kind of light. We're going to talk about uh, Trump and Putin and what's the potential of that meeting. And then we might go into a little of this redistricting situation. And then from there, we're going to talk about the picnic and being a member of this two-way community and what it's like to meet everyone. And we'll just keep it light. And I actually might be bailing early because I'm going to meet Chris Simmons for me and Jackie are going to meet Chris Simmons for brunch, and I have to make it there on time. We have a 12:15 reservation, so I want to make sure I'm in a rest stop right now in North Carolina. So we're going to Charlotte to see Chris. Okay, so let's begin. Putin, Russia, and Trump. Aaron, what do you think? You think this meeting's going to happen?
Um, I think at some point some meeting will happen. I don't know if it's this meeting. I don't think you're going to get a lot out of the process because I think this is the challenge is that I think Trump assumed that there's a deal that can be made and that all that's the problem is that you just have two parties that can't find a price. This is a lot different. This is sort of existential. And I think Trump is discovering that he can't control all these actors. And even if he could, that their societies are not as are unable or big enough parts of them are unable to quote unquote make a deal that would satisfy the people who are on the outside versus the people who are in that fight. And I think Trump already knows that at this point. And I think he's somehow trying to get out of the campaign rhetoric, the 24-hour rhetoric, which I think is sort of like the international version of the Epstein case, is that, he had rhetoric going in that existed for however long it did, years, that, losers are the reason this is still happening, whatever. And I think now it's, he's now stuck in the reality of this. So I think what's going to be fascinating for him is how much is he willing to sort of play top dog games with Putin? Because Putin has sort of chosen not to sort of bite too much, or when he bites back, it's weeks later. It's totally a random thing. Like, I don't know if you noticed the other day, he gave, I mean, it's horrible and weird, but so there was a CIA analyst, she's a 30, 40-year veteran, and her son, who had mental instabilities, went and fought for the Russians. And he gave basically the Order of Lenin. Her kid died. He gave the Order of Lenin to him, and then basically drop shipped it to the CIA and announced it. Um, so I think that's how Putin plays this, right? If Trump says something bombastic, Putin doesn't like get back in the ring with him. He doesn't go MMA because I think he doesn't know how Trump's going to respond. So it will be fascinating to see. Um, to be honest, it'll be interesting to see, does Putin even want to be in a small operating environment with Trump anyways?
Okay, so
Mhm.
Mike, based on what Aaron's just said, why then would Trump meet with Putin, and why would Putin meet with Trump?
I
Why are these
my
guys meeting?
So if you were to go back, to the old way of doing things, the non-Trump way of doing things, you hear criticism of legitimizing the Russian side, their version of their aggression, of why they went into this whole thing. That's already been done. We already did a UN vote to solidify Russia's reasoning for doing it, and amongst a few other actions that allies took notice of. I'm not quite sure what the aim is. I just know that there's no such thing as it's not just US, Russia, and Ukraine. And we know this because NATO has squawked and said that they need to be part of it on the EU side. And also Zelensky has not been quiet. He's said the same things that he has said over and over again. Now, I will say, I don't think it's fair to criticize Zelensky like as much as some pundits in the United States are, because he has to do daily addresses to his people. And of course, what is he going to say? We're going to capitulate and give, no, he's going to say he's going to stick to the key points, the stakes that he wants. Obviously, the Russia is going to do that. I am very, very curious what happens. I think it's very interesting that they're going to be meeting in Alaska August 15th. But one thing, whether you're pro-Russian or pro-Ukraine or isolationist somewhere in the middle, it doesn't really matter. My thinking is that Russia never comes to these things when they're ready to talk and they come to the table. They always have a strategic aim in mind, not necessarily for what the purpose is that we all the public knows, but for example, I'll pull apart. They had the air truce that they offered. Bullshit. It's a bullshit offer because it only holds back Ukraine, because Ukraine is the only one that's taking the air war, if we call drones air war, which they are. Well, sorry, let me let Ribbon in. Sorry. Anyway, they had and that only benefits Ukraine. doesn't benefit Russia whatsoever because Russia has stated through their actions many times that they're all about the war of attrition. And they go after civilian targets. They don't just they go after legit military targets too. But it's more about be a shame if you had that whole block of apartment complexes because just get bombed. So as a Trump voter, I don't know where we're going. We're once again we're in unknown waters, but I agree with what Aaron said as far as like, Putin avoiding the small ring one-on-one versus Trump. I think he is very smart and crafty. I don't quite know what Russia's point. I think this is just Russia to stall more. But I think they also run the risk while they have, I arguably from the beginning of Trump's administration till now, Russia's arguably been the beneficiary of more wins than losses, at the expense of Trump's PR persona and Ukraine, and us actually dressing down Ukraine directly on the world stage in the White House not so long ago. But I wonder if I hope anyway that Trump has some kind of like an ulterior motive here to like where he's just not kind of come to this and do it willy-nilly. There's some kind of a plan of attack here when the Russians fall through on their side of the talking because it will happen. And we know this. And then the other thing I would ask, pay close attention to like the last 2 or 3 months of White House meetings that have been public and the ones that are going forward, especially the ones that border Russia. The only reason why I say that is because it's very unusual, and I don't believe this is coincidence whatsoever, and I can't prove anything, but I've been talking about Azerbaijan for weeks and months. If we are going to take a more pro-Ukrainian stance, it can't just be on the battlefield. It can't, I mean, yes, we need to do weapons, and if that's what we're going to do, that's fine. That's wonderful. But it has to be more than that. Ukraine doesn't have the manpower or the push on the battlefield to force Russia to the table whatsoever at this point in time. That's factually true. But the only way that you're going to get Russia to bring them to heel, Russia's foreign policy is heavy around they're peacekeepers. They have to have boots on the ground. That's the way that they develop their foreign policy with their neighbors. They always have some kind of military presence, whether it's peacekeepers or a base or something, to enforce their economic, their agreements and whatnot. So I don't think it's a coincidence that you have Azerbaijan and Armenia striking a peace deal, which essentially was already hammered out months and months and weeks before. So, but credit where due, whatever. Like, we'll just go with, maximal benefit for Trump for there. But I can't help but wonder what do we not know and what is tied to Russia if Russia continues to be a dick, because Armenia and Azerbaijan are not in the they're not on
Not
Russia's
even
side
close.
whatsoever.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, right.
So and the other thing I would say is like look to Turkey, maybe even look to a couple other Mideast partners in that, not far away from that area, because you have a couple. You have Iran essentially, that got a couple black eyes. They're not going to be doing anything heavy-handed anytime soon. They got to mind their P's and Q's so they can build back up their military capacity or whatever. And Russia at the same point. Russia is overextended. You can say what you want about Russia, but at the end of the day, they're committing everything that they have. Their entire economy has been militarized to this point. They're where we will be if they continue on and we go to war with, say, or whatever. No, we might be able to take it on the chin a little bit more. But anyway, so I don't quite know what to make, but I will say I can't. I don't think that Trump is so stupid to not have a plan B and to be working actively to that plan B, because I have a feeling that that plan B, if there is one, is going to become plan A real quick when the negotiations break down or they fail or we see
Right.
that Putin is full shit.
One
That's
other quick point here to make Mike, and Mike made a bunch of great points. The reality is that if you look at Russia's maximalist negotiating position, um, they state they want all five oblasts, which
right.
is Crimea. They never, by the way, they never say four, but five because they already assume Crimea. And the media and everybody else says four, and it sort of you create the de facto out of the de jure. Now, the thing to recognize is that they only have full control of one. They have very high percentage of another, and in two others, they're actually in a small percentage. So what they're doing is they're using that negotiate they're using the need or the desire that Trump has, and let's argue the Trump voter and I would say the international stop the war voter, who is actually in general not a Trump, well, they're becoming, some percentage is a Trump voter, and a large percentage actually is on the far left internationally, for a bunch of reasons. So that position of just stop the war, I don't care, which, by the way, is actually somewhat linked to the stop the war in Gaza kind of position, which is basically stop all war. Um, that's the sort of Trump maximalist position, or that type of thinker voter, a maximalist position. So that's the position Trump has to sort of re-navigate out of, right? Putin is not going to re-navigate out of the 4 oblast or 5 oblasts or his. The Ukrainians are not going to navigate out of giving away the 5 oblasts. I do think there's a minority position in Ukraine that's always been there, very small and maybe forming a little bigger, but still a minority position, probably not more than a quarter of them, who are who are willing to accept well, we'll give them two of the 4 oblasts, and long term we'll use international legal community on Crimea, right? So that you could argue is the negotiated Ukrainian position. There's a maximalist position in Ukraine, which is give them nothing, fight for
Right.
everything. So the problem is that these parties are so far apart, and they've always been so far apart. And the reason it's so far apart is the political culture of the populations drive them far apart, especially now in Russia and in the U.S. slash international. That is the Stop the War coalition, we'll call it, and the Ukrainian and Don't Stop the War support them, right? So those three positions are have an underlying support for a whole bunch of reasons, right? Russia cannot leave this war and say all we got is Crimea, and
Which we already had.
which we already had two. We 100% got two oblasts, which we had half of before the war started. Yeah, around half of, and then we got pieces of two more that we might have to give up, which we won't, but we'll say we will. And why did we lose basically
Yeah.
our whole generation of our land forces?
L-
Now, I
lem-
will
l-
say one thing real quick here before you bring in others.
well, I'm
Uh,
going to comment on it too.
yeah, is that Ukraine does have a negotiating position, or can force Russia to start negotiating in a much more serious way. But the U.S., especially the U.S., is critical for this, and I'd say the Germans too. We always sort of forget the Germans. So if if the um, if the U.S. supported, and the Germans, which the Germans could be muscled into support it, and they have people who actually would want to support this, would robustly target what you would call the strategic components of Russian power, which involves using Taurus long-range missiles that the Germans have, involves using long-range missiles that we have, basically ground-based cruise missiles that we
Well, let
could.
me let me let me let me jump in
Well,
because I because now we're getting into very specific details about
yeah,
weaponry and what. Let me talk about
sure.
philosophical. All right. So we know JD Vance was no war, right? He was that Trump coalition that's no war, right? He doesn't want to support Israel. He doesn't want to support Ukraine. He doesn't want to spend the money there. That's JD Vance, right? That's how we know. That's why he played good cop, bad cop with Zelensky in the White House. On the other side, you got Rubio, who's really a hawk when it comes to Russia. And this is where Trump, over time, you know, I could just see it happening too, like Rubio going, see, he just bitch slapped you again. He just bitch slapped you again, talking about Putin, and then Trump's going, yeah, this guy's bitch slapping me, and this is not cool. So this is just, never mind the big idea of weaponry and whatever. So now Trump says we might have a plan where we can exchange territories, which to me makes zero sense. But because Ukraine doesn't want to give up what they have. And Russia doesn't want to give up what they gained or what they think they can gain, right? So what I really think this is going to come down to is whether Trump is smart enough to not take any of Putin's bullshit, or if he's going to extend that olive branch one more time just to get bitch slapped again, because we know that's what's going to happen, right? And then he's going to go full Trump like he did with Iran. So we'll see, how this is going to play out. But I think if he's been listening to Rubio more, one of those moves we made a few weeks ago, which Aaron, I believe you said was kind of like it was when with the nuclear sub, right? It was kind of already there. It was like an exercise or whatever, um, in that region. I would not be surprised if Trump says, "Screw it, this guy's bitch slapping me," and he does something about it. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it does mean more force than Russia has received in a long time. And whether it's between the Europeans helping out um Ukraine or we helping out Ukraine, I see a little blowback on Putin, which means this will last a long time.
Yeah, which has always been my position.
Right.
My position's always been from within the first few months of this conflict, once it ramped up, because the history of conflicts when they ramp up is that they take a very long time to ramp down because it's not the people fighting only, it's the societies dig their heels in, and they have a higher stake that goes up as the fighting intensifies because more of the society participates and more of the society loses. And it's just what we do as human beings, right? Whether we're in small groups or whether we're nation states. So I think I've always said this was, minimum 5 and more than likely closer to 10 years. And at this point, after, over 3.5 years, my view is, obviously it's 5 years for sure at this point, through all of next year makes it 5 years. I think it leans heavier to the, 10 to 15. If you really count when the war started, it was the invasion of Crimea is really the war. So it's already been 11 years. If you really look at it,
Yeah.
there was a big lull. There was a lull, which still had a lot of intensity, but it kept fighting. And one point on that a lot of people don't realize is that while the Korean War was incredibly intense from 1950 to 53, the war stayed for another almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And there was, and it wasn't just onesie, twosies of North Koreans fighting. If you look, and I recommend people just look at that on Wikipedia, you'll see there was battalion and regiment level incursions by the North Koreans in the late 60s, where you had up to, you had thousands of people on both sides fighting, and that were casualties. And most people would never say, if you answered, you're a nice student in high school and you get all your questions right, would ever say the Korean War lasted beyond 1950 to 53. So, and with the modern world, those kind of engagements can last for a very, very long time. And the only thing that put that to bed was, a lot of people don't know that the Chinese and the Russians almost fought a full-fledged war in 1968, 69.
Yeah, that's what we need now. That's what we need now. But
I mean, that's
listen,
not going to
yeah,
happen.
right. No,
That
of
that was
course
not
not. Of
happening.
course not. But listen, we'll just table this until it happens, and we'll even see if they actually meet. Now the new thing I heard on the news is why I was listening to CNN all this morning just to see what they have to say, and there's a report that Trump is going to invite Zelensky to Alaska, but of course he's going to meet with Putin first, and there's no guarantee that Zelensky's
What
even
I
going to
don't
meet with Putin.
understand is at a practical level, and because there is someone really solid involved, it's General Kellogg, and General Kellogg is a very, very highly reputable, uh, post-military leader, uh, uh, diplomat, military kind of a leader. Is that I understand the sort of Trump style to do deals and to kind of play with things and have playthings like a cat with mice, and I think that works with lots of domestic issues. I think it works with lots of small countries that are sort of single point of failure software almost. But when you're dealing with something this big with this many, it's really everyone that's big in the world, the Europeans collectively, the Chinese and the Russians, the Chinese indirectly, but the Chinese and then the Russians, that that the Trump style, which is sort of like startup studio hacking, which works on these smaller issues. With something like this, you really need to go into sort of Camp David, old school
Yeah, and
planning mode.
and
And
and Trump doesn't want to do anything without the Europeans. In fact, he'd rather have Macron. Go ahead, Macron, you go in there and put your boots on the ground and help out, you
yeah, and no
dumbass.
one's putting boots on the ground, by
No,
the way.
nobody is. Nobody is. So it's
Not
strictly
without
Ukraine. All
not
right,
without
so
Russia's say. Not without
right,
Russia's say. Russia has a
exactly.
say in this,
You're
whether
right.
people like it or not. Yeah.
You're right. You're right, Mike. You're 100% right. All right, listen, we're going to move on. Let's very quickly around the horn do the redistricting. One sentence. What do we think with, Texas now? Do we think te the Republicans in Texas are going to succeed? Aaron.
I think they're going to show that they could succeed, and then they're going to administratively have exit stage,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
And that will be their sort of shot across the bow and see if there's someone that grabs the bait. I think this is a terrible game of chicken because you start to get into post-Trump world. Like, a lot of people don't realize these kind of
Yes.
things
They last.
they
Yeah.
they, they, they
Yeah.
turn into Hatfield-McCoy
Yeah.
fights that
Yeah.
outlast everybody.
Yeah. Mikey, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I think it's an interesting distraction. I think this is the probably one of the more significant culture wars things that, as Aaron touched on, that people in other states see these walkouts. One side sees them as heroic, the other side as theatrical. It's got that we're not going to take it kind of vibe, which is all
Yeah.
the rage. And the thing, I think that it's very interesting. I absolutely do think that they will redistrict at the end of the day. Whether they'll be able to make use of that or not is another thing, politically or not. But we are we are in this era of what do you what do you bring more to the show than policy or process or whatever. It's all about, the news cycle and who can get the best things in on social media and own the other side. So
I
this is
call
just
this
an extension of
performative.
that.
Yeah, I call all of this performative vandalism. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
But at the end of the day, though, the GOP has more to gain from this than the Democrats do.
Over
Because
the map. Yes, they
well,
do.
because
Yes.
nobody gives a shit if California or New York or Illinois redistrict. Who cares? You guys were already doing
well,
that
no,
anyway.
but Mike, that's a short-term view
Right.
of the wave advantage that you guys that on the right have in this cycle. Eventually that cycle, finishes and or smooths out, whatever. And if these fights still go on and people in this country, one thing we do is we move around a lot. I mean, we just do. And you will have a newly balanced structure that in 5 years might not benefit you in the same way.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so then, it's going to be difficult for people to care about this in a post-Trump world and say, well, this is what you get when you try to politicize almost everything that exists. I mean, there's a reason we purposely created these breaks on doing things like redistricting only when it's census time, putting Federal Reserve and other positions as 5-year positions, because we want to try to make it independent of the hard political cycle. It's always still going to have some politics. It's part of the maybe soft political cycle. And when you harden it, and the world maybe changes, because I think it will, it always does, then it's, you can face the you can kind of reap what you sow
Right.
in a later date. And I don't think, if I'm being objective, I don't think this is a fantastic hill to die on, because the hill to die on is that if you had structured the big beautiful bill into dozens of small bills, so you can keep people's attention with 1 to 2 to 300 billion dollar legislating for months, quarters, all the way into next year, then you could sell, quote unquote, your benefits that you wanted to achieve. But when you backloaded it all away, and we're an attention economy, attention society, attention culture, well, you can't be surprised when people are like, yeah, whatever, the big beautiful bill, the IRA, the whatever. And both parties do this. They
Yeah.
want these sort of wins for the base, and they want them fast. And then the base comes in and says, well, if you don't do this now, you're, whatever, you're the enemy too, right? And so they respond, but then they lose all their political capital. And then a year and a half later, people are like, what? I don't know. I don't see it.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
that's where you look for the term double haters.
yeah.
Double haters are going to be
Fair way to
the
look at it.
headline for or the sub headline for everything after, say, spring of 2026, like going into the midterms anyway. So no,
Well, plus
there is.
here's a point too. Let's say this is all performative and nothing happens. Nothing happens in Texas, California does. Nobody does anything, right? And let's just say hypothetically, which is it's probably unlikely, but let's say the Republicans have a good midterm. Well, what do you think the Democrats are going to do to
Well,
counteract that down the road? You know what I'm
Well, like
saying?
just a small example of like those double haters that I was talking about.
Right.
They're everywhere. Okay, you have
And in both parties, by the way, they're in both
Yes,
oh,
yes,
parties.
absolutely. Yeah,
100%.
you have this really the right, the true conservatives of the which used to run the party in the GOP. You have them kvetching about Trump said he put a little thing out, a little blurb out or leak out or whatever you want to call it about decriminalizing marijuana. All of those classic conservative folks are like, "What? No, no, don't do that. We don't care. We don't." Whereas, that
The new right, the
40%
new right, the new
in the
right.
middle, yeah, in the middle, or like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go for it, like blah 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 blah. But how will that play into the overall thing? There's a push and a pull, and I don't, to be honest with you, even if this redistricting thing does come through and they can make use of it for the midterms, the GOP is already at a historic disadvantage, and arguably from the one big beautiful bill from that as well, because they for whatever reason there are parts of that bill that are actually they're not super popular, but they're popular enough to win some races here and there. Not on a
Well,
great
I
yeah.
question if any large, and I've said this to Kenny before, is that, and I think people in the media doesn't do this, and I don't mean like it's the evil media. I just mean like the way things are framed. So we're a $30 trillion economy. These bills, I mean, you can't pass anything in America from any party that's anything more than 3 to 5 trillion over 10 years. That's 300 to 500 billion a year. That's only 1%. Right.
Right.
So we talk, whoever passes a bill says this changes everything, and whoever's against it says this destroys everything. And the answer is most of the time this does almost nothing. And it's because it's only one max 2%. It's not even 2% anymore. And so I do think there's a constant overestimating what the actual benefits or
Well,
impact will
right,
be
but here's the
from
pro- here's the
something.
Right. Here's the problem with the big bad beautiful bill with for Republicans is, the Democrats and the legacy media are latching on to this. Everybody's losing their health care. The way their messaging is, none of us will have health care with this bill, right? Which is a total fallacy. And in fact, nobody's losing their health care. If you don't follow the procedure, you'll lose your health care. They're making it
But but but
harder.
but but Kenny, you moving from an environment where I mean, I've always said this: when Democrats have full power, you get political, or you get healthcare access and coverage up to about 96, 7, 8 now. When Republicans have full power, it drops to about 93, 92, 3, 4. It just does
Hmm.
because of how they articulate the levers of the system. And I mean, that's just a real thing. You can just follow it in this modern cycle over the last 15 plus years since we had ACA. And that is real. Like, so those extra 8 million will come off the rolls in the next year, and they're trying to delay sort of the implementation. Um, and and we can say, well, we just changed the rules. You can keep your health care if you can do these 5 new steps. Well, the truth is, the part of the population that is going to be challenged to do those 5 new steps is the population that falls off the healthcare rolls. Those people still live and they still have healthcare costs. Now we just load the healthcare costs onto the system. We don't really change the price. We do basically a cost shifting game is what we do. That's
Listen,
yeah.
in its simplest terms, if my tax paying dollars are going towards helping people with, their health, I'm all for it. And I'm also all for, if you have to fill out a couple of extra pieces of paper to do it, do it. Okay. But I get it. I get it. And it's a lot of it's like nitpicky stuff like that because they want people to fall off the rolls. But
Yeah.
like you said, the problem is then it gets dumped on the healthcare system anyway. Like
That's
Local,
right.
your
you know,
local healthcare systems get
right.
overwhelmed, and then you have
Exactly. So that's
debt
the
upon
problem
debt.
that these
Yeah.
knuckleheads can never figure out. All right, so listen, we're gonna transition now. I'll talk first, and then I want Haley and Raleigh and Alan to come in. And Aaron, you'll comment as well about the picnic. So, yes, yesterday was the two-way fan picnic. Deborah Knox did a wonderful job of organizing. She put us under a big tree on the northeast end of the Sheep Meadow in Central Park. So we had complete shade. We had two lovely men oiling themselves up there on the side. I don't know what that was all about, but anyway, that was fun. And
It's 2025. Welcome to
yeah, no, it was fun.
2025.
It just like right in the middle of our party. That was the funny thing about it, is like they just plopped down and started going to town, which was great. Love America. But anyway, it was great to meet Alan. It was great to meet Haley for the first time. Raleigh, who's my boy, got to see him. And then Raleigh was great because he went around with his phone with his mom on, so we all got to say hi to his mom. And of course, me and Aaron are friends. We've hung out several times. And it was just wonderful. It was a nice get together. And it's interesting, you have these Zoom friends, you make these Zoom friends, and you don't really know the person until you meet them, and then you meet them and then you realize, yeah, these are my Zoom friends. They're actually my friends now. I've met Mike in person, I've met Aaron in person, I've met Dan Olivo in person, I've met Haley, I've met Alan, I've met Raleigh, I've met Peter Chott, I've met Raul. I'm going to meet Chris Simmons. Like, there's it just now we can put that human touch to this Zoom chat thing and make it inhabitable for all of us, and understand that whether we agree with each other, we don't agree with each other, we're all good people and we basically like each other. So I thought yesterday was a success and it was fun. And now I'm going to ask my cohorts to jump in. And also, I'm going to make Mike the host because I might have to slip out of here early. And if I do, I will just catch everybody on the
Oh,
shows.
hey,
Yep.
Jimmy, you should switch over to your phone and stay
phone. Yeah.
host, and then because so you can keep your YouTube.
Oh, it's because the stream will die if I stop being the host.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Well, all
Just
right.
switch over to your phone, and that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not worried
You
about
can
it.
just put your phone up next, or just get off a video.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm not worried about it. All right. So who wants to come in? And I guess Mike, you'll referee, tell people to come in or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me allow people to unmute themselves for now, and then yeah, you guys can come on in. Come on in, Raleigh. Alan, anybody want to go first? I see Raleigh has his hand up. If you can hear me, Raleigh, and you have a good signal, otherwise somebody else can step up. You guys can unmute yourselves too, by the way.
Let's not all talk at once.
If I had a cattle prod, I would be prodding every one of
Alan's
you.
having a hard time unmuting. Let's see if we can. Can you get Alan to unmute?
Yeah, you got to unmute Alan.
What about Raleigh? All right, these guys are with.
Now it's working. It wasn't allowing me to unmute. I was gonna
Okay.
let the hostess with one of the hostesses with the mostest, Miss Haley should speak first.
I
Ladies
can
first.
unmute now.
Okay, good.
Here we go.
What about Haley? Can you unmute Haley? No, she's saying no. Mike, you're the host, so you got to figure that out.
Yeah, you should be able to unmute. The
You
option
gotta
is
ask
open.
her to unmute.
Oh, good
Yeah.
grief. All right,
Yeah.
all right. Let
You
me
gotta
go ahead and
ask
do that.
each
Yeah, just
person
click on her box,
individually
right?
to
And
unmute.
then,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then, yeah, there we
All
go.
right, unmute.
There you go.
Thank you guys. Now
There
I'm
you go.
okay.
Okay.
So the picnic was fantastic. I posted my pictures in the chat if anybody wants to take a look. And if anyone has pictures, please send me. Um, it was awesome seeing everybody, getting to meet everybody. I made a little speech that unfortunately didn't record, so that was sucked. But um, yeah, it was truly a wonderful day. I'm kind of feeling it now. I think I'm getting like deathly sick because of everything, and my body is not cooperating, but it was all worth it. And truly, like as Professor Kenny said, you guys have become friends. It's not just make believe Zoom friends, real life friends. And it was truly an awesome experience. And we hope to do it again and, sometime next year. And hopefully it'll be better. But it was fantastic. And I have no complaints. And I hope everybody enjoyed themselves too.
Awesome. Yeah, great pictures, by the way, too. Thank you for sharing those, Haley.
Yeah, of course.
You and Daryl didn't hurt each other, did you?
Oh no. It was we strictly friendly interactions. No, there was actually like some people who came, a couple of people who watch the YouTube and don't participate in the Zoom.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like not a lot, but a few, and they were really really sweet and amazing, and they like recognized me and a few others, and it was just really cool to like meet people who there were some people who came who like aren't on the Zooms with us, so it was just really awesome to like kind of just gain more people to that we're all in the same kind of community, and it was really awesome. And Daryl was like king of the picnic. He came with the cooler, got brought all drinks, cold drinks. He was really awesome.
Great.
So, Raleigh, Alan, how do you guys feel?
I'm having it was everything I hoped for and more. Just meeting everyone and um speaking with everyone and getting to know everyone in person. It was fun. Um, the Daryl's cooler was a behemoth. I was the work mule.
You literally, just so you guys know, we had an amazing spot, but it was like from the entrance to the park, it was a trek. Okay. It was like, I don't know, in distance and miles, whatever, but we had to like, let's say go go pick the spot. Then we had to go back, help Daryl. Then we had to bring his stuff there. Then we had to go back to Target and buy our stuff. And then we had to come. I mean, it was just like work. It was a work day. It was a work morning for sure. But like I said, I would do it all again. No complaints. It was worth it. And, you just forget at New York City and how much walking and how much like true effort it takes in New York City. But it
Now,
was,
was it anybody's first time trip to NYC at all from the people who showed up?
My first time like
That's
really
what I thought. Yeah.
staying in New York City. I never stayed. I was in New York City for like 4 hours when I was 19 and just but this was my first time staying, so it's been awesome. I mean, I love the walking. I think I did more steps in the past 2 days than I've done in the past 6 months in Tallahassee. Um, so,
yes.
but
I walked more yesterday than I have, I think, since I was a freaking teenager in New York City.
it was worth every second of it. And and um Kenny's Jackie's taco salad was like fantastic. It was one of the best things I've ever eaten. So I definitely need that recipe. Um and it was really nice to meet Jacqueline Marie. So it was nice to see her and talk to her and get to know her a little more and her brother. And you know, and just seeing everyone there, it was heartwarming.
Yeah.
It like warms my heart. It makes me happy, and it makes all the driving and all the everything just worth it, and then some. So that's what I got to say.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and for the people that are still there that have to travel home, make sure you be safe when you go home. So,
Yeah, I'm not driving 18 hours home. I'm gonna break that up into a day and pra-
Yes.
smart
practice
man.
practice Professor Kenny's. I'm gonna probably sleep at a rest stop one night and just chill. So
Did Dan show up?
no, Dan T is going to get the wrath of the picnickers.
Yes. He was in the Hamptons,
Oh,
Oh, how sad.
enjoying himself a little too much, as we all think. But he did write an email, and so he he didn't just uh
No show, no
ghost
call, no
us.
show.
Exactly.
Well,
He
that's
did contact us, but it really regardless, it was awesome. And I think they're going to be excited to hear that we all got together anyway.
yeah. Ribbon had asked in the thing when and where is the next one? I think that's
Well,
the
I
if
think
it's
we should
anywhere else
do
but if it's anywhere else but New York, someone else is planning it.
yeah.
That's all I got to say.
I think we should do Atlanta with Atlanta should be the next one.
I should say we should just do New York again because, like, if it's a place like Atlanta, I'm not going. I'm not getting an airline ticket and stuff and renting a hotel just to go to Atlanta.
Atlanta has the worst airport.
Yeah, I mean, I have no interest in going on vacation to Atlanta. Since I've been here, I've been all over Manhattan and I've been to Times Square. I've been to
Maybe we can do
Tower.
somewhere in the middle, like DC or something.
I wouldn't mind DC. But yeah, I've had a wonderful time since I've arrived here. I've walked all over the place. My first day here, I was here just a few hours and I'd already walked all over Central Park.